Welcome back. Can you please take seats so we can start with the session? Hello. I have to make what? A turtle joke. Oh no, that's Anita's competence. I'm beyond that. I can do some others, like lizard jokes, for example. Yeah, lizard jokes. Okay, welcome back. Maybe there are a few more chairs there and a few more chairs here, so please take the chairs. Okay. Maybe just a question, how were the contributions, forums? Maybe if you can share a sign or clap or... Okay. Woo! Thank you for the contributors, so helping us all learn about innovative practices here. Okay. So, I'm mindful that we also have online audience waiting for this session to be live streamed. So, checking with the technical team, we can start officially? Yeah, okay. So, welcome to the session about the futures of youth work. And also greetings to our online audience who was patiently waiting for the session to start. We've been talking about futures of youth work already for 2 days here, but this is also the moment when we can see this question from a little bit more research point of view. And it's been an exciting process that lasted almost a year in a very, very interesting, also for me personally, very innovative experience of jumping into research methodology that is not really a standard classical quantitative research methodology that we, let's say, learn at universities sometimes, but it's something different. And probably by looking at the future, we need different methods and different methodologies to look into the unknown. And I think that was interesting example. I'm also very excited because this was this moment, like lots of people were waiting. Let's hear what the research will say about the future. Although, as Adana said yesterday, it's really not about prediction and we don't really have a crystal ball and tell you, okay, research in 2050 will look like this. But there will be some interesting glimpses and let's see what we can do at present time to think about future and how research will help us in doing that. The research was done by the team of 4. So Aleksandra Szymczyk, maybe big applause to Aleksandra. Özgehan Şenyuva, yeah. Yeah. Giselle Evrar is here. Woo! And I think I helped a bit, so I could not say, but I have a bit. So thanks a lot. Before jumping into the research results and outcomes and scenarios, I give backward to Sonja Mitter, coordinator of the Academy, to tell us a little bit about why actually this research was actually done in the framework of the Academy. So welcome Sonja and applause to Sonja.
Good morning. Welcome back. I'm happy really to introduce this session, the outcomes of the project Futures on Youth Work, or of Youth Work. It's really a project that's integral to the European Academy on Youth Work. We've started about a year ago at the last meeting of the advisory board and steering group that met in April last year. And at the time, we were thinking back to the second Academy on Youth Work. Some of you were there 2 years ago. And you know, the Academy is all about innovation in youth work. So we're looking at the last Academy, we looked at why are we looking at innovation? What does it mean? How do we promote innovation in projects, in organizations, and so on? And of course, innovation always in relation to what is actually happening in society as a response to trends we're seeing and developments and changes taking place. So in a way, it was a natural follow-up after focusing on innovation itself to say, okay, maybe we need to take a closer look at what is happening actually around us and in response to what we need to think about how the field needs to develop further. And at the second academy, we had a guest speaker, a key speaker, Professor Gary Pollock from Manchester Metropolitan University, professor of sociology, and he talked about a research that they had done a few years ago on developing future scenarios of young people. And we thought, actually, we got intrigued by that. And we thought, this is actually really an interesting question to see, to envision what might be the changes and what impact might they have on, in this case, young people. And then we thought, okay, maybe this could be something actually to look into more closely for youth work. So if we're looking at the big developments and then saying, okay, so what, we're looking around us at what's happening, what is the impact on that, or what could be the impact of that on youth work in different environments? And the academy is a space, as you're hopefully experiencing at the moment, where we want to create a platform for conversations, right? For dialogue, for hearing different voices, and encouraging discussions about how people and how the field can move forward. And we thought this project might be a good environment to actually encourage such a project and undertake such a project of looking into the future of youth work. It's a bit of an experiment for our field. I know there are expectations around the project has been introduced, but it's also new to our field. There have been these kinds of future foresight projects have been done by different groups, we know that, but not at European level in that sense, at European level youth work and looking at that in this context. And I would also like to stress that we are a little bit experimenting with this methodology. You've heard Adana yesterday talk about the experience, a couple of projects she was referring to that were undertaken in California or in Japan, involving thousands of people. That's, of course, a very different dimension to what we can offer. But nevertheless, it's a very interesting step forward. You will hear about it more in a minute. And we thought, besides looking at the scenarios, it's also interesting to look into the process as such, of seeing how, so if we're developing scenarios, what kinds of responses that will provoke maybe in us, of what does that mean for us today if we're hearing about what could happen in the future, how things might develop, engaging with it, developing recommendations on what actions could or should be taken today, and also to look at what competencies do we need in order to actually engage with this kind of envisioning and possibly also then co-creating the future of youth work. And to see how the method itself, the methodology itself, can be interesting for us and how we can use that. So I'm very happy to hand over to Özgehan and Alex to present actually the outcomes of the research and to give you more information also on how we worked. We hope you will find it interesting and you will also just then react to it, engage with us on it, because it's a collaborative project. I think it's very important to emphasize it's a collaborative methodology itself. It should involve many people and not be done in some back room by some experts only. So as Adana said, really every voice matters, and we're also interested in hearing then also how you will react to it and respond to it and what you will think about it. Thank you.
Clicker, let's hear it. Hello. Before we get into the presentation, hello to the audience at home. We are aware that slides cannot be read properly, so we put it into Menti as presentation. So this is the time of double screen. When we are speaking, you will already be checking your phone. Very important stuff, we know. So please open a tab, a new window for us. And this is the code 6758 2142. It's written, or you can get it with QR. all our slides and all the information will be there. So you don't have to make photos or zoom in like I was trying to do yesterday. And if you're following at home, this is where you can read the slides better, because we try to make them short, but it's a big report. There's a lot we want to share. So sometimes there's a lot of text on it. You can follow from your devices. Can you repeat the code, please? 6. The winning numbers are 6, 7, 5, 8, 2, 1, 4, and 2. And the winner is... And this is another testament of how old some people are in this room, because I see some people saying, oh, Menti used to be 2. The presentation number 2. No, it's a lot of numbers now. Okay, this is what Sonia wonderfully presented, the purpose and objectives. You can take a look at them.
Yeah, I wanted to also express gratitude for being here, for being invited onto this project and into the academy. It was a really wonderful journey that we took together, the 4 of us, as well as with Sonia, who was supporting this whole process throughout. It was really a great experience to get to know everybody and also explore futures of this very vital and important field. Yeah.
Thanks, Alex. I'm Özgehan, and as Alex said, we were very excited, and this was a very engaging project, and we are very proud and excited to present it. And to a little bit tell you about it, we will present the findings now, but then we have exercises to discuss, to go over them. And it is, as Sonia rightfully said, it is not about predicting the future. This is not an exercise. We are aware that seeing the future has been a fascination for humankind since the ancient times, because people tried anything to be able to see the future. Different cultures are present in this room. In my culture in Turkey, we drink the coffee and try to see the future through the coffee. In some cultures, it's the tea leaves. Some cultures, they looked at the stars. Some places, they looked at the fire. And all the goal of trying to see the future. And going back to what Adana was presenting yesterday, future is not linear. It's always the mental image for us that past is behind and future is ahead. And we're looking towards the future and we're walking towards the future. But once you start thinking and going deeper, you realize that in reality, we're walking backwards. What we see is the past and the present. And the future is behind us, which we don't see. That's why they were in search of the coffee, the stars, trying to catch it, trying to see it. It's definitely not our aim to predict. We don't have a magic ball, as Darko was saying. Our aim was to discuss. And our working motto was this lovely poem, these very wise words from another Polish woman. I will not dare to say the name.
Wisława Szymborska.
That's a... I should have moved my lips as if I'm saying it. But when we were doing the research, we were feeding a lot from literature about movies. You will see we are quoting a lot. And this was very illuminating for us, because the moment we said future, the first syllable was already in the past. So future is now. Future is not something waiting for us there. It's happening all the time. So this was our working philosophy. And please keep this in mind when you hear our presentation of the research.
Exactly. It was also, from the outset, as Sonia already mentioned, the vision of this project was participatory. We will now walk you through the process and everything that we've done to come to this point in the project. But first of all, I wanted to thank you, everybody who participated along the way, either as signal spotters, as experts for interviews and people participating in our resonance workshop. I know some of you are in the room, so maybe raise your hand, and I would like to invite everybody to give a round of applause for everybody that engaged in this project. Thank you. You made this possible, and we hope that you feel that this project belongs to you as well. So from September to October, we had a group of diverse signal spotters from across Europe engaging in horizon scanning. Adana yesterday presented us with a beautiful introduction to the methodologies of foresight, so we will not be going over that again because we have only limited time. But the idea was to try to pay attention to even the weak signals from diverse sources such as news, research, but even casual conversations that we have at a dinner table that might spark insight about something that could be developing in the future. Additionally, we had interviews with experts from fields of youth work, from academia, technology, and other fields to deepen our insight and help to synthesize the inputs that we discovered through signal spotting. We also had collaborative activities that we engaged as a research team, and the resonance workshop that was held in February that we will also talk about. But beforehand, I just wanted to show you what the signals look like, because I think it's really interesting to see the diversity of the types of signals that we've been getting. This is one example that was coming from a conversation at a flea market. And it was, a really great and interesting signal to, about the loss of analog skills and different changing ways of life. We also had signals that, were almost like a mini essay that provided sources and recommendations and really, really detailed observations and recommendations. And we wanted to not necessarily place any extra value on any type of insight. We wanted to treat all the insights as potentially valuable and not exclude anything because, something is coming from a more expert source or something is coming from a different place. We wanted to really, in the process of our analysis, to take everything into the account that was submitted. And this is an image of our process of trying to come from these signals into trends and scenarios. When we met as a team in Ljubljana in December, we were reading all of the signals. We were putting them on a table, trying to categorize them in some ways, putting them together, trying to figure out relationships. And we came with this huge, diverse network and map of all of the signals. And this is just an illustration of how it looked like. And one thing to emphasize is that we had a lot of signals in certain domains, such as technology, education, and the fact that they ended up in the center sometimes could be also seen a bit as something that happened in the process. We also similarly to when looking at the signals, didn't want to just put extra emphasis on something because we got more signals in that area. So we, even in some areas where we got small amount of signals, we still wanted to include that in the report and still reflect on that, because this is the point. Some signals might be weak and we might not be ready yet to see them fully, but it's still important to reflect on them.
And in order to go beyond, because we collected all the signals, we read them individually, we discussed as a group, and we wanted to resonate them, to go beyond our personal realities, because we all have a certain education, certain background. So the same signal we could read and interpret separately and differently. And when 5 of us discussed it, it was imminent. So we organized a workshop, a resonance workshop. This is one of my favorite paintings by Norman Rockwell. And I have to say that we were using AI image generator a lot. and you will see some of the images we have created using AI. But this is original. It's hanging in my wall, actually. It's called the Gossip. The Gossips, actually. A lot of people familiar with it. And we held the resonance workshop to start the Gossip, to present, and to try to go beyond our personal limitations and biases. And one outcome of the workshop was very clear, that you cannot speak about the future, you discuss about the future. The moment we presented our scenarios, it started a discussion. What kind of a discussion? It was a discussion about agency. Is this a future we want, or is this a future we fight? Is this probable? Is this desired? Or is this a bad scenario? That was immediately a discussion. And we will have the exercise and try to engage you in that discussion as well, because the agency is important. Can we do something about it, or are we helpless? We dig deeper and we wait for it. This was immediately the discussion in the resonance workshop. Another discussion was about time and space boundaries. Look at us, we are here now, but you've been emailing, you've been texting with people all around the world. Some people are in their home, but also here. I know somebody is cycling at the moment and listening to this broadcast. And where is she now? Is she with us or there? So time and space mattered. So what is Horizon 2 for some countries, some realities was already Horizon 1. So Resonance Workshop made it clear. When we presented it as future, some colleagues immediately said, yeah, but this is yesterday in my reality. We already went through this. And the biggest shock for me was 10 days ago when I presented this research in Japan, and they were like, oh, Europe is coming up finally on some scenarios. They're like, welcome, we've been waiting for you. What took you so long, you know? So time and space mattered, and it creates a discussion. But what is important, and the message we got from all this is, it's to explore and to discuss, but not to predict. And that's why we prepared you some questions as well, which Alex will present, and I will present. This is not reading your horoscope in the morning. You know, the Sagittarius, be careful about that red-headed man driving a bicycle. It's not that. We don't do that. We have to prepare, explore, and discuss. So our aim is to start and feed into this discussion, but not to take your hand and tell you in 3 months you will go to an international project and meet very interesting people. By the way, you will. Next one then.
So when you read the report, you will find that we divided it into 2 big sections. One is the cross-category themes, which looks at the, which is an idea that came out from our mapping process to look at issues that are kind of transversal and connecting to almost everything else in all the other spheres, and that have implications in many areas, including and these included technology, climate and environment, and values and ethics. And as you see in this diagram, what I try to convey is that these issues affect each other constantly. And we also encourage you to read this report in a non-linear way, because all of these issues are interconnected. And we divided it in a way that makes sense to us, but there's probably a lot of different ways to look at it. So we encourage you to look at it curiously and think about the interconnections and the keeping in mind this non-linear and interconnected image. And also another thing we wanted to highlight is to remember that future is not determined, but yet particular aspects evoke particular emotions and reactions. Imagining long-term future can be sometimes anxiety-inducing and overwhelming, particularly if we're thinking about difficult issues, challenges, problems. But it also has a potential to empower ourselves through this exercise. So we believe it's important to monitor these issues and that are important to young people, and think about the feelings that arise in us in reaction to them. Because our perceptions and attitudes about the future will influence what will unfold. So we should strive to understand these connections. And I wanted also to highlight, before we go deeper into the discussion, is that futures are not distributed equally. There are certain challenges that would affect some groups of people more than others, particularly those who are facing poverty, racism, other forms of discrimination, are located in particular areas that are under threat, etc. So just keep this in mind, that this is not a unified future for all of us.
So these are some questions. So you don't listen to us, as I said, as a forecast, weather forecast, or your horoscope. Weather forecast is good, actually, in a thing. If there's a probability of rain, then you will take your rain jacket. So it's an issue of being prepared as well, whether you like it or not, or whether it's going to ruin your plan or it's going to alter your plan. It's about being prepared. So technology theme kept coming again and again, as you can imagine. And technology has always been affecting. So keeping these questions in mind, one outcome was that technology is presented as a double-edged sword when it comes to future. It can do good and it can do harm. One strong good was, for instance, it can help personalized, engaging custom education through VR, AR, all the abbreviations in the alphabet, think about it. And it can help making education, for instance, accessible for different places, customized, personalized. But on the other hand, for instance, it can help and contribute to erosion of analog skills. We will talk more about it. It can contribute negatively to the mental well-being and isolation and reality. But for instance, on a political sense, it can feed into the issues of mega ethics with the amount of data being collected, or technology can do harm on one hand, cultural sharing, people connecting with different people from all around the world. But on the other hand, it's not even an echo chamber, but it's even an echo silo, where you can go find some evidence, some information that will just make you stronger in your conviction, in your belief, and make you even more close-minded. So the technology as a double-edged sword is affecting. On the other hand, climate and environment is, as we said, are affecting each other and other issues. One issue comes up, for instance, again, refugees, but climate refugees. There was a session on climate change activism, so there was already a discussion going on. And also sustainability and degrowth strategies is coming. You have seen the long detailed signal. Some signal spotters attached tons of documents, which we read. We thank them. We have a depository and library now. And codependence and resource sharing is an issue of the future as well. Coexistence, codependence. So climate and environment, for instance, also creates, we will talk about it, climate-induced anxiety and mental well-being issues as well, which will come back later on.
So our final cross-cutting theme was values and ethics, which raises the big questions on where youth work will stand when different areas of concern, including AI ethics, data privacy, deepfakes, etc., are highlighting big ethical challenges that are coming or are already becoming huge issues. Signals also pointed to points of radicalization fueled by divisive propaganda in algorithmic echo chambers, underscoring that need for critical thinking and resilience. Reconciling these complex issues, such as inclusion, pluralism, and demographic changes, will require also dialogue and facilitation alongside thinking about issues of preserving cultural heritage. So this is a kind of a call for youth work to nurture those critical abilities while upholding human rights principles, advocating for societal changes, and shaping ethical future transformations. As our quote says, youth work cannot remain on the sidelines of the process. It's important, signals pointed to the fact that it is important to engage head-on with these big challenges. And And before we move on to discussion of trends and scenarios, we wanted to highlight this idea from the anthropologist and political thinker Kalt Polanyi about the idea called the double movement. You might have already noticed when we having a lot of discussions throughout this academy, in the workshops, etc., that we can see different forces that are coming against each other in a sort of push and pull dynamic. Polanyi's insight into this dynamic interplay between societal change and economic systems, it's a useful way of understanding why some future scenarios might appear contradictory. And we wanted to recognize that oscillation between, for example, push for greater freedom and push for or resistance against disruption. So when we go through all of the scenarios, you might think like, oh, this scenario contradicts the one that we just talked about before. And this is exactly what came out of the process. This is what came out of the signals. And this is also brings us back to that question of agency in terms of where we're going to put our efforts coming into the future.
And this image is AI generated. When we asked it to discuss Kalt Polanyi and the double movement from this perspective, we had different ones, but the moment it came into reality, like in 3 seconds, more or less both of us thought about the same painting, which is allegory of good government and bad government, which is displayed in Siena, Tuscany Hall. So we were discussing in the presentation, we will be throwing a lot of names, a lot of things. So you might check them or you can Google them now, because that's the new thing. When you hear something, you immediately Google. So, and then we were kind of enjoying that AI was referring to something from medieval times about good governance and bad governance. But it's the yin and yang and coexistence that amazed us, because it's not a matter of either or. It is an issue of and, that it will not be only Blade Runner or utopian no technology. It will be coexistence in most of the cases. So it's contradictory, but also coexisting. And I think AI was doing a good job creating this image on that.
So when exploring these potential trends and scenarios, we continuously want to acknowledge this interconnectedness between them. They do not exist in isolation, as Özge highlighted, but they influence and shape each other in intricate ways. So as we embark on this exploration, we do encourage you to recognize the patterns that we observe that are not separate domains. Instead, they form a continuum with different threads affecting each other, often in unexpected ways. So, starting with demographic change, this is... Do you want to introduce the AI
yes,
image?
This once again an AI image. When we were feeding it and training it, we didn't just write one sentence prompts, by the way. We were feeding it the scenarios, what it looks like, everything that came. This is an exercise, actually, which tonight we will be sitting and talking. So if anybody comes to our lounge, we can explain, because each and every item here refers to one part of the massive scenario we were feeding, such as analog skills on others, which Alex will present. But keep this image in mind when Alex presents these scenarios.
Demographic changes, such as aging population, migration flows, and evolving family structures, are already profoundly reshaping the social fabric. And the fact that there will be much fewer people in the future will also influence the expenditure plan and governmental priorities. This will have significant implications on how resources are allocated and what priorities exist and are set on government levels. So the first scenario looks at how, as residential areas, for example, become more age-specific, the divide between younger and older generations deepen. This segregation can lead to a lack of intergenerational understanding and cooperation. And youth may face disadvantages that result from this due to policies designed primarily for the older generations, potentially widening the wealth and opportunity gap. Oh, sorry. On the other hand, the second scenario explores the idea of intergenerational bonds. We had signals pointing to economic trends and housing crisis that may force to reshape and rethink our current goals of and kind of mark posts of adulthood and independence. Intergenerational living might become the norm for a large proportion of population because of limited access to elder care, as well as difficulties in the housing market for young people. Youth work, therefore, could play a crucial role in facilitating these intergenerational knowledge exchanges and fostering mutual support within families that might be going back to living models that existed throughout human history, but in the past century or so have become less and less common. Another scenario looked at how youth work may evolve into elderly work or community work. Societal shifts may force even the field itself to rethink its purpose and try to focus more on the intergenerational community work that works with entire age spectrum, thinking more holistically about the needs of communities that could broaden the mandate of the field. Solidarity for the Anthropocene is another scenario, and of course we're not going to have time to go through each and one of them of the scenarios whilst in this presentation due to time limitations, but I hope it gives you a flavor of what you can expect when reading the report and engaging with it. So Anthropocene is the age where human activity has resulted in the fact that there's no more cheap nature, and as notable anthropologists, I'm an anthropologist, so I'll be weaving hopefully some anthropological insights throughout. Anat Singh called Anthropocene as a moment where we lose places of refuge, not just for humans, but for other species. And because they are poisoned, they disappear due to fires, due to climate, for various reasons. And this results in issues such as climate-induced migration, and that forces us to rethink how we engage with each other, what solidarities we build between ourselves as humans, but also other beings, and how can we make this era of Anthropocene perhaps as short as possible.
And then another issue we had was high-tech, low life. I can summarize it like that, where we see technology affecting the lives in a certain way, and especially in culture, social behavior, and a lifestyle. When we were going over the slides, we were checking each other's codes to make sense or not. And then it made me remember that Matrix, which was revolutionary future, was released in '99, which is so far back that it's like quoting, you know, when people quoted Gone with the Wind to us, we would like, oh, and then I'm quoting Matrix, which used to make you cool 20 years ago. And now people are like, I just Googled it. It's an old movie. So follow the white rabbit. But it still keeps its validity. There are 4 scenarios we came up with. And very briefly, entertainment is a mixture of, again, time and space. When do you get entertainment and how do you get it is changing. But also, it is changing from a possible, in this scenario, from a passive receiver role to customized participatory active role. Look at this. I mean, last time I drew a stick man, they called an ambulance because it was so postmodern and so bad. But now I can create images with zero talent in drawing. So this is helping people to express themselves artistically despite the lack of talent. Is it good, bad? It's a whole debate for us to have. But people will like to produce as well. This was like informative when the newspapers, with the Internet 2.0, when you read the newspaper, the news, and then you could comment under it. It changed certain things. And now entertainment, you can be a part of it and you can produce it. So it's the search for experience. The word is becoming more experience, not entertained, but gain an experience. And this also links to travel experiences and travel practices. Quick question to the room, because we're staying in a hotel. How many of you put "Do Not Disturb" sign on your door when you were leaving? But you're not in the room, are you? It was meant for don't get into my... Okay, unless you're hiding something, which I don't want to know what's in your room. But it's practically our environmental sense of traveling. We don't want to be cleaned and changed every day. So this is part of... Nobody trained us to do it. There was no public campaign. It just happened. People started doing this kind of things. Just like carrying your own water bottles around. There is no rule, there is no suggestion, no big posters. People just do these things. So this will be reflected in journey traveling and conscious traveling experiences. One thing we were coming up with, less tourism, more travelers and traveling. People are in search of experience. You will see less of buses of 20 people going somewhere and clicking, but people joining different experiences, which is good news for youth work, because imagine the value of work camps now. It's a holiday where you don't only take, but you also contribute. So this is going to happen. And digital nomadism is a good example of how they are interlinked. This has to do with technology making it possible to work in different places, new forms of flexible work and economy, actually encouraging workers to get out of metropolitan cities because it's expensive and other issues. So our scenario was foreseeing H2, H3, where it would be possible for you to become part of these communes where you will do your work remotely and then you can change according to your wish. And then future is now. We built this, we were excited about this scenario. And then 5 days ago, we read this article that such communes and places already exist, talking about this Danish family who are raising their children through digital nomadism. So you go to a country and there are already places that you can be a part with facilities for you to work remotely, taking care of legal things. So in some cases, this is already happening. But coming to youth work, are they just living in complexes and parasites to the society because the climate is nice? Because some of them are in nice places like Thailand, South Africa, where the climate is agreeable, weather is clean. But what do they give in return to the community? Where is the responsibility of it? What is the ethics of it? This is what we're saying. It's all interlinked. Work, travel, technology, entertainment combined brings about technical and ethical issues at the same time. And on the last issue, there is a lot of discussion going on. This is a major issue already. It's called FIMI. If you heard the abbreviation before, it is a top priority for EU, for West, foreign information, manipulation, and interference. If you Google FIMI, you will find a lot of research, policy guidelines. It's a top priority for the European Commission. And this media literacy, checking information, misinformation, disinformation is there. It's even in movies, this characterization. And again, young people are both the recipient and producers of FIMI. So it's something we will have to keep in mind in terms of culture, social behavior, and lifestyle. Can you just go back one to the AI drawing? So this was the low-tech, high-life. It's a different virtual, even breaking the physical versus virtual versus physical. Again, it's not versus anymore. It's going to be virtual and physical at the same time.
In the civic sphere, we received a number of signals pointing to growing polarization in political discourse, democratic backsliding in certain regions, and overall lack of trust in public institutions. And this also leads to a rise in youth activism around climate change, equality, and rights, pointing to potential new avenues for civic participation centered on social justice movements. And the scenarios that we explore here point to diminishing political influence of youth and potential avenues of counteracting that. For example, should we push for lowering of the voting age? Another scenario pointing to grassroots initiatives and decentralization and increasing youth participation in activism, and how youth workers and everybody else can support that, and how we can contend with that, particularly if we're beneficiaries of the status quo. Another scenario that is also looking at questioning legacy institutions and rethinking governance models through innovative approaches to civic engagement, including those enabled by technology.
And when we were talking about it, one signal we were talking about is this is the year of elections. And just look at the age average of the candidates. Think about United States elections and their age average, which will have reference. And then it's one thing to make such candidates, such policies, and then putting the blame on the young people once again that they are not interested in politics, but maybe they don't find their place there. And, it's like, again, blaming the young people automatically, but then not looking at what's happening. And so the future scenarios are connected, and activism, actually. It's not less and less interest, but different forms of interest and participation. And the same goes for education. And again, the quote comes from Pink Floyd, so that I don't have to do. But I think this is more accurate than ever. Education was interesting to look at because most of us are coming from informal and non-formal education and learning. And the bells are ringing for more formal education. The ancient model, coming all the way from ancient Greece, from golden age of Islam, madrasa and everything, look at me and listen to me and you will learn, is definitely not in the scenarios. There's the issue of passion learning, no age, but there's access to education, access to learning. People will keep learning different things at their own pace, personalized and democratized. And then personalized AI tutors. Again, we wrote the report before here, and then ChatGPT reveals 4.0, and they have this short clip, if you have seen it, AI teaching about triangles to a child, a young person. So we wrote it before. They stole the idea from us. I have to say, this is the race against time. We started 1 year ago, and some things already are in the past, actually. Yeah. But this is personalized learning experiences is there, because at the moment learning is so externalized in the formal education. You don't decide when you're going to learn history, how you're going to be evaluated. But in the future scenarios, it's very customized, personalized, individualized, which is the demand by the young people anyways. We all buy the same phone, and everybody customizes and personalizes from ringtone to how it looks. But still the education is uniform and standardized. So the future scenarios are all about different experience, interdisciplinary learning, but also it is possible through simulation, immersive experiences, and safe skill experimentation. As real as it gets teaching how to operate, they are doing simulations, VR, and augmented reality. So medical faculty students are already learning through experience without cutting real people. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm glad I'm not on the other side.
Similarly, in the realm of work and economy, signals pointed to unstable and uncertain future with precarity, numerous professional changes, and the need for continuous development of new competencies and large-scale reorientation efforts. These changes provide both a challenge and an opportunity, and they also point to emerging concerns around environmental responsibility of current production system, pointing to a need for a pragmatic economic shift. I think we're gonna go forward because I'm aware that we're running out of time, so... Yeah.
Okay, and then in order to do that, we dumped all of it together, everything we were speaking. When you put them together, the community, other issues are all coming there. But the point is, we want to make, we will not go over them one by one, is none of them looks out of place. Some people said, I was there, that looks like my youth organization, that looks like my father's office, and this looks like the cafeteria in my university. So this is to say that future, we will not wake up one day and we are in future, you are already in the future. So even the AI cannot come up with awkward, real, crazy things. Now, mental health and well-being, this is a slogan that we quite liked. It's okay not to be okay. And the scenario is, it will be okay not to be okay. Professor Gary Pollock have been pointing out, and British scholars have been pointing out that mental health and well-being issues are out there. It's a mega trend already. There's lots of evidence, but are we prepared for it and how it will come? Rising mental health issues is there. It's coming from different places. All signals, all evidence points to young people suffering more and more. But building resilience, making it accepted and part of preparation is there. As simple as preparing training courses and exchanges, recognizing some participants might be going through mental health and well-being issues, but the holistic approaches to well-being is also important. So one scenario, for instance, in the resonance workshop we were talking is, at the moment we have a lot of physical well-being, preventive work, gyms, awareness, but not enough for mental well-being, preventive work, or mental gyms, supporting gyms, making it part of school and education issue, not stigmatizing, but making a part of this life. Also digital combination. Now, digitally, how many of you are wearing smartwatches or those things that tells you your heartbeat or your tension? How many kilometers did you run? Nothing to be ashamed. People are like this. They're the ones like, yeah, but it was a gift. I didn't buy it, No, but imagine that for your mental well-being issues, that is monitoring and that can support you, help you to intervene beforehand, or AI tutors making it accessible. This is part of the scenario. No matter how you approach it, tech, ethics, preparedness, and resilience and education comes all together when it comes to mental health and well-being. 4 scenarios is not enough. It's up to you to come up with more. And it's linked, coming back to the link, there is climate anxiety and other forms that keeps feeding to this anxiety and well-being. So it's not one thing, but all of them feed into this as well.
The next thematic area that we looked at was signals arising from issues around war and conflict. And we've chosen this quote from brilliant thinker Donna Haraway from her book Staying with the Trouble. And I think a lot of this project is about when we talk about these difficult issues, and sometimes even working on this report and reading the issues over and over, you start feeling a bit of a knot in your stomach, and what is it gonna be? What Donna Haraway invites us to do is to stay with this trouble, acknowledge it, acknowledge the discomfort, acknowledge the uncertainty, and try to even make more trouble. Stir up potent responses to devastating events, and try to settle troubled waters where we can and rebuild quiet places. Of course, as we are all aware, global instability and conflict will likely continue to have profound effects on young people, leading to displacement, loss of education, and likely severe psychological trauma. And one thing to remember is that while we are all continuously bombarded with a lot of information about different conflicts that are happening around the world, sometimes in our own backyard, sometimes a bit further away, it's often difficult to engage with the pain of others and fully understand what they're going through. And it's easy to sometimes try to cut ourselves off from everything bad that is going on in the world. So different scenarios point to importance of continuing to engage with these issues and different ways and potential avenues for youth work to respond to these problems.
And the quote we had was, "Humanity wants no more war," is from Proudhon, who was a prominent anarchist thinker, and he wrote this in 18th century. And it's not a failed predicament, actually, because he has long treatise on the war. But we wanted to quote it that 18th century, this was not a failed scenario, but it invites to the quote by Haraway that we have to keep engaging and talking about it. And also how we are related to other issues and how we're going to affect it. We were thinking of another favorite philosopher of ours. Alex, let's bring up Susan Sontag to the debate as well.
Yeah, I mean, Susan Sontag's famous essay regarding the pain of others talked about how exposure to development of photography and war photography especially allows us on the one hand to recognize what is happening on the other side of the world and the experiences of violence that do not affect us directly, but at the same time, due to lack of lived experience of these conditions, she poses the questions, can we actually really relate to what is happening in a photograph whilst we sit and drink our coffee, etc. So she invites us to question how can we broaden our empathic scope when rather than pointlessly engaging with gory images.
So we might not stop war and
Sorry.
We might not stop war and conflict, but we are part of it, and it affects young people every day, and it will continue to affect them. And they might give different reactions, and it brings an ethical and practical responsibility for all of us to talk more about it. And then finally, we also received a lot of signals on how youth work will look in the future. Although the idea was we will collect the signals, and it was our task, but we received a lot of signals on the practice of the youth work. People gave us a lot of signals, actually, regarding the practice of youth work and discussing. And there were different aspects of it. Sustainability is there, long-term well-being was there. It should be part of the youth work. Inclusion of different people, be it climate refugees, be it conflict refugees, which is coming, and how to deal with the new skills and competences, new models of education, which was very glad for us to see because the sector is already ahead in the debate. The debate is already there. The youth work field is already discussing, talking, and coming up with solutions. Again, Resonance Workshop showed us that what we say H3 is already H1 in some countries, and they have a lot to share. So discussion and sharing became important for us. We don't have to invent the wheel now here because somebody has been riding it for some time, and that's why we give a lot of importance for us to discuss with each other. Next one, considering the time.
Yes, so as we come to the end, once again, coming back to this idea of staying with the trouble. And one thing that is important coming through this experience and as we continue the discussions after these presentations, but also in the afternoon where Giselle will talk a little bit more about how we can approach these issues that we've been discussing here. We wanted also to highlight the importance of the way that we talk about different matters, the way that we tell our stories, and the way that we imagine the future, because it all will have an effect on the reality that we live in.
So thank you for listening. And as we are both in the academia, now we're talking in our academic field, as we generally finish our classes, please do the readings. The report, and yes, you need to read it all. That's the question. Sometimes we're getting from the students, like, do we have to read all of it? I was like, okay, you can read half of it, but we will not tell you which half of it. But thank you for listening, and this is the moment we give you 4 questions.
Thank you.
No, I have a microphone. Thanks a lot. I'm from the future. We have microphones like that in the future. Yes, just a few minutes to digest. It was a lot of. I just was listening. I was trying to listen with a fresh mind, as if I first time hear it. Although for me it's probably fifth time, and I was part of the drafting team. So just 3 minutes, maybe with your neighbor, just to share first impressions. And looking at maybe the question that we have is, well, basically, how do you feel when listening to these trends, and what questions that might arise? So we have some time that you can pose questions to Alex and Özge, but just 3 minutes to chat with your neighbor. First impressions, just release the tension and anxiety, frustration, and come up with the questions. Okay, this is not to stop your conversation, just to pause. So we have some couple of minutes here to take some questions to Özge and Alex. And of course, the invitation for the lounge in the afternoon is there. So if you want to go deeper into that with them. And as I said already, the second part of the presentation will be after lunch with Giselle, talking more about implications about future readiness. But that's the next level. So, shoot. First questions coming from reactions from what you've just heard. Anita and Domagoj will be there, catching up with microphones.
Hi, I'm Tomek. I was one of the signal spotters. And I need to say it was super exciting to me. And actually, I already met a number of colleagues who were saying, I also would like to do it. So in case you think of a continuation, then I already have a list of people that like to join. From my point of view, it was super interesting to hear. I think the factors of change that we have identified are quite general. And then the scenarios, to me, are quite too positive, or maybe too much wishful thinking. Maybe because of my age, I don't know. So the question is that how much do you think the composition of signal spotters are actually influencing this, what we have identified? I'm living in a small village. Most of my neighbors will have no bloody idea what we talk about. And actually, when I see their aspirations, it's so much far from our potential scenarios that we have identified. So maybe it's just, our specific, nature and characteristic of the group of signal spotters. Thank you.
Thanks, Tomek. The microphone is here.
Yeah, thank you so much for participating as a signal spotter. I'm glad to hear that it was a good experience, an interesting one. And I hope that we can all kind of carry forward the idea of signal spotting even into our daily life, to just pay attention as we go through our daily life, as we're reading things, to continue paying that attention, because it doesn't have to be limited to just this one moment when we decided to do this project. And similarly, hopefully, in your organizations as well, you can perhaps implement this habit of paying attention and discussing issues as you go forward. And of course, what we came up with came from the signals, and it inevitably is created by the composition of the people that participated. It's very hard to escape that, but we can all continue to kind of have these dialogues wherever we go. I think that's the idea of it. So this is not, to say that, and as you will read the report, you will see some scenarios are more pessimistic, some of them are more optimistic, some of them go completely against each other. So you will notice that, but it's more just to spark a discussion even with your neighbors, if you can,
And there were so many quotes and so many authors and singers we couldn't put here, but they will go to the report. And what you said reminds me another very, very wise thinker, and what she wrote about Zadie Smith. And past is tense, present is simple, and future is perfect. So it's also what we will talk in the sessions afterwards, because we are aware that positive for one might mean very negative for the other, especially if we don't think out of the box and challenge the current paradigm we live in. If you want to criticize it, you might be against neoliberal market practices and putting all the pressure on young person to become more and more attractive and to become more employable, and creating anxiety, stress, and all kinds of other issues among young people, sometimes even resulting in exit, saying, I don't want to play this game anymore. So are we going to adjust and fix so it doesn't get broken, or we'll just dump it and get a new one? Is up to us to discuss, and it's very ideological. And I think this was the first agreement we had in the research team, which was, we will not, of course, we have our individual convictions, but it is up to the academy and members of the academy whether these scenarios are desirable, or you want it or you fight it, and what you do about it, because it's ideology. But what our position was, prepare. We can prepare for it, and then it will be up to you individually what you're going to do about it. And that's why the rest of the day is designed that way, to discuss, to elaborate. So I might not see it positive, you might see it negative, but that's, I think, again, I will finish quote with Kurt Vonnegut and Slaughterhouse 5, another fantastic novel about time as a cycle. It's not good, it's not bad, and so it goes. So maybe, and so it goes. But I want to discuss, and I want to be prepared when it comes, because wait, it just came.
Thank you. Dragan.
Thank you. My name is Dragan. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting findings to begin with. My first impression, I just wanted to check it with you. My first reaction is, looking at all the scenarios under all of the topics, is yes, it can happen. I can easily imagine any of those scenarios happening at the same time. So for me, they don't, most of them, they don't exclude each other. They are not really clashing, as you said, Alec, with each other, but they are more complementary. And maybe I expected a little bit, maybe different directions in which future could go. So I'm curious if you found any of that, if you found any excluding scenarios, if you found that in some area, and maybe in which areas. You can say, did you find different versions of the future, or were they really more complementary and more happening simultaneously? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this question. It's a really great point, because, of course, as we noted in the beginning, kind of things will happen. You know, a lot of this depends on where you are. One thing might be happening in a city, another thing might be happening in a village, one thing might be happening in one country, one thing might be happening to a person of a certain class, etc. Of course, they can be, they're not, let's say, like universal future for everybody. There is no such a thing. So this is definitely something we need to keep in mind. But, you know, and these things can coexist, as we talked about this double movement, where there are pressures from various sides with kind of contradictory objectives, but they can still coexist in the same reality. So we can have people pushing for rethinking of the governance models, you know, employing big data systems to improve and streamline governance. On the other hand, we could have people who are protesting and they want to completely change the system, right? So these are two various forces that could have kind of contradictory trajectories, but at the same time, they can exist in the same society at the same time, trying to push in a different direction and perhaps influencing each other in the process.
Yeah. Thanks. It's a lively discussion going on social media. Maybe one more question from here. Who was first? Okay.
Hello, I'm Claudia from Italy, and I am a trainer on artificial intelligence. So I found very interesting that adults are more attracted by artificial intelligence than young, and I was surprised by that. And I saw adults becoming children, saying, wow. And said the young are really, well, yes, another. It's like, well, TikTok or Instagram or artificial intelligence. And Now we are doing a interesting project founded by EU, because when I speak with people about artificial intelligence, or they hate or they love. And I say, no, it's not possible. Now we are doing this training with creative people, singers and poetry, and they find 1,000 aspects they don't love and hate. So I invite you to, when you come back to your youth centers or to your friends, to make them close the eyes and go out of the box and see with different eyes. So please, thank you very much to these expressions and everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Yeah. Okay. I was looking.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was a long list of people wondering from more practical questions about how the report will be available.
They're having a party online.
Having party online, indeed.
We have more questions from the room, if you want.
I think one important one for youth work is coming there. Actually, some people seeing the last slide with youth work practices almost like kind of concluding slide, but maybe it was not so clear that it was actually just a slide that came out of the signals. Some of them commenting, yeah, I see the activism as a core of my youth work in the future, for example. And some people were asking, so what happens with the decisions and directions after this report? Basically, who takes them? And that's a quite interesting discussion there. Okay.
The report is a chapter on the academy event itself. All our discussions here, all you will produce will go to the report. We're not coming and serving you something already cooked, done, and packaged. It's still in the making. So all you're saying is being recorded, all the workshops will be recorded, all the discussions. We didn't come with a ready meal, take it or leave it. Everything you put, just like Resonance Workshop changed certain aspects of it, the academy will change. And then we will give it to you, and then it's yours afterwards, and you will do what you want with it. You might take it to your young people and say, guys, get ready for the battle. It's going to be a long trip. And you can go and say, I have good news. But at the end, it will be your decision whether you want more activism, less activism, you're going to fight it, or you will take it. This is not for us to share. But I think, as somebody said, as Susie said, it comes back to the issue of values of youth work. What are the ethics and values you draw for yourself? And does any of these scenarios threaten, challenge, endanger erosion of these values, or are they going to strengthen it? So it's also what kind of a future you want. By the way, a few people pointed out at early stages saying future has no plural. It's like saying chickens. Why are you saying futures? You non-native people, don't you know English? And that was one of the biggest signal that different futures are possible at the same time with each other. We don't have one future. And each time, each step, that S at the end become bigger and bigger. And I think in the final cover of the report, it's even written with a different font, with a different color to emphasize different futures. It will be you choosing building or fighting that, or us. I'm not leaving yet, so.
Thank you. One more, I think, and then we're closing slowly.
Yeah, Jan from Italy. Actually, I think that the last couple of comments and sentences have already brought it up. So my comment was on the whole idea of the link between youth work and what I perceive a future need for more youth activism. I know it's a hot topic, but I think that strategically thinking about the future hot topics should be, uncomfortable topics should be more interesting than which app are we going to use or something like that. So it's already been brought up, so thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
We have one more question.
Yeah.
Can we still
Yes.
give space? It was here.
Thank you very much. It's not much of a question, but of a comment, because the research is very extensive. But I would like the academy to look more at the trend that we have right now with regards to immigration. with migration, the conflict and the war is a major disruption right now, disruptor in everything. And it's so important that as youth workers, that we begin to identify with this even much more, because the AI technology is already in discovery, but the mental well-being displacement amongst youth coming in because of war is still yet to be found out. So I would like the academy really to concentrate more research on that, because empathy is not learned. Empathy is about experience. So it's important we have that included in the research. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's for the moment. So in the afternoon, after lunch, I think Giselle will probably build on the last comment a lot, on this sense of, on basically this illusion of separatedness, that actually we can be living in our own bubbles and not caring. There's one quote I like saying, the part cannot be well unless the whole is well. And maybe with that thought, I leave you with this. So in the afternoon, we'll speak more about, okay, so what are the implications for getting future ready? We've been speaking about future readiness for 2 days, but the question is, more in practical terms, what do we mean by that? And that's where we're going in the afternoon. The report will be available soon, so there will be lots of reading to define soon, in the future, in the near future. Yes. So big applause to the research team. And for closing of the session, I think, say what? Yes, I always forget for people online, sorry for that. So thanks for being with us there, and let's keep on reflecting and thinking about the future of youth work based on this research, based on other inputs. So thanks for being with us. We wave to you together, like, way. Yes, and for the last, we have announcements. Woo!